안녕하세요. 한국스포츠산업경영학회 사무총장 한양대학교 남상백 교수입니다. 세계적으로 코로나 바이러스를 비롯해 어려운 시국에 한국스포츠산업경영학회와 딜로이트 코리아가 함께 공동 주관하는 국제학술대회를 개최함에 따라 연구와 발표에 있어 준비 과정이 쉽지 않으셨겠지만 많은 학자분들이 참여해 주셔서 진심으로 감사드립니다. 오늘 구두 발표는 9개 연구와 5개의 포스터 발표가 오전에 진행됩니다. 구두 발표가 마친 대로 포스터 발표는 3분간씩 슬라이드쇼로 진행될 예정입니다. 혹시 질의응답이 필요하신 분들은 메모를 해두셨다가 해당 발표의 교신 저자에게 이메일을 주시면 되겠습니다. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Secretary General of Korea Society for Sport Management, professor at Hanyang University. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I strongly take the difficult process of your research and preparation of the presentation to heart. Today, in the morning session, we have 9 oral presentations prepared and 5 poster presentations will be presented. After 9 oral presentations, poster presentations will be run in slideshow. If you have any questions on a certain presentation, please take a memo and write an email to the corresponding author. Well, let's start the first oral presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil-Soo Kim from Hanyang University. I am delighted and honored to share my research at the Korean Society for Sport Management Global Conference. My research deals with the effects of golf influencers and social media on Korean golf consumer behaviors. And this research has been rendered with a qualitative research method. This is the table of contents of my presentation, and it is going to start with the introduction and establish a theoretical background explaining the social learning theory. And I will continue with the research methodology and the research findings after that to discuss and wrap up with a conclusion. We're observing the rise of social media and the proliferation of social media influencers. These influencers would comprehensively represent its persuasive power and the contemporary progress to affect the growth of its industry and the consumer behaviors. Conceptually, manifold scholars have argued that social influencers would represent a type of third-party endorsers who shapes audience attitudes and the marketing activities. So, golf influencers with social media orientation can be one of the central tenets of Korean golf industry who participate with a marketing function of self-branding idea. I postulate with the view that they possess the ability to use its social media, utilizing their thoughts and opinions of golf context contents to communicate with consumers and their followers. So one of the fundamental research objectives was to explore an in-depth relationship between golf influencers in social media and its consumer behaviors through qualitative research to ruminate the effectiveness of the social learning theory prevailing in social media environment. The theoretical background comes from the social learning theory brought up by Bandura and Walters in 1977, and this research basically explores the effects of golf influencers of social media on the Korean golf consumer behaviors. I postulate with a view that social influencers would encourage consumer behaviors on the basis of informative feedback, inducing thoughts or hypotheses about the types of behavior most likely to succeed which then serves as guides for future actions. So one of the important things to highlight is that from a sport management perspective, consumer behaviors are learned either deliberately or inadvertently through examples, and such golf influencers can serve as an example recommending or reinforcing products, services, and contents of golf sport industry to consumers through the means of social media that will eventually affect consumer behaviors and the growth of the Korean golf sport industry. This research draws from the qualitative research methodology, seeking to explore in-depth understanding of the meaning and experience dimensions of golf influencers and its sport management impacts on customer behaviors. By conducting a qualitative, in-depth, semi-structured interview, I have chosen 12 golf influencers that are active in social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, with at least 200,000 subscribers. And I have allocated open-ended and discovery-oriented qualitative research to deeply excavate these golf influencers' feelings and perspectives on this type of subject. So central to this qualitative research, I have reinforced with an emphasis on the subject meanings, actions, and social context of golf influencers in social media as they interact with their subscribers and potential consumers of the Korean golf sports industry. And I have evaluated the context, interpreted it, and illustrated to lead it to the research findings. Research findings are in four folds. Although there are interesting scripts shared by golf influencers, I have simplified the research findings due to the limitations. First of all, there is an existence of a consumer behaviors desiring over-interests in aesthetical values of golf influencers and social media contents. Consumers would definitely prefer aesthetical values in the selection of subscribing social media contents. This leads to a tendency that consumers or subscribers choose female golf influencers with fine-tuned aesthetical values. And this type of selection would render golf influencers to put massive amount of emphasis on the social phenomenon of over-interests of aesthetical values in order to become celebrities in social media. The second research finding is related to the inducement of social influencer marketing strategy. And firms use social media channels to actually involve in such type of marketing activities. Specifically, product placement on the social media would refer to the exposure of the products of firms that naturally fit into an overall composition of images and contents related to golf influencers. So consumer behaviors react to golf influencers marketing strategies that leads to purchasing intentions. To continue on with the research findings, the third one is related to golf influencers creating buzz to the younger markets and further expanding its social media coverage and business expansion to the target market segments. This research typically captures consumers in the spectrum of younger Y and Z generation, and they have higher tendencies of following such influencers, eventually participating in the golf economics. This would continue to be a viable solution for sports managers and marketers who are willing to think outside of the box. while extending customer relationship with their younger target market segments. The fourth one would be network effects, and such effects elevates the diffusion of process of social network based on social learning appearing with golf influencers and consumers. Frankly, golf influencers conjoin their media contents with other social media influencers to better create the fundamentals of the contents. And this type of activities would lead to inflows of consumers into the golf context and overall expansion of the market. I would like to generate discussion and conclusion before I wrap up my presentation. I acknowledge the fact that this research needs more scrutiny and development. Despite insufficiencies of the research, I do postulate with a view that such research findings would entail social learning theory applied among the relationship between golf influencers and social media on consumer behaviors. And also, consumers cognitively align their connections with the social context of golf influencers, and that is through observations, vicarious reinforcement, and social learning process. I hope that this study adds to the existing literatures by reflecting on the social media influencer marketing opportunities, which determines consumer behaviors, and particularly focusing on the emerging issue. I hope that this study shed light to provide managerial implications in the field of sport management. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Chong-na from the Master's program at the Yonsei University. It's an honor to have this chance to present my research. The title of study is The Structural Relationship Among Perceived Crowdedness, Spectator Satisfaction, and Revisit Intention in a Professional Basketball Study. The table of contents is as follows. This is the average number change of spectators in professional basketball and professional volleyball. Since the 14-15 season, the average spectator was reduced from about 2,000 to about 400 in the 18-19 season. Professional basketball has become a representative winter spectator sport, but declined popularity in recent 5 years, and the growth of professional volleyball market threatened the position of winter spectator sports. However, because of the various marketing activities of KBL and its teams, the average number of spectators increased 10.7% compared to the previous season and recorded 3,231 in the 1920 season. In terms of customer management of professional sports club, active communication with fans through media such as SNS will deepen their bond and increase the visit intention. In this way, the number of spectators could increase next season as well. Crowdedness is the psychological stress condition that occurs when consumer demand exceeds supply in a limited space, resulting in too many people or too little space. Crowdedness is known to cause negative emotions and behavior, but it also induces positive responses and satisfaction of customers. When consumers saw crowded stores, they desire to sympathize with others. Crowdedness in sports spectators can expect the stadium to be crowded because professional sports are held at a certain time and place. Spectators wanted to share with others, relieve stress, assimilate into a new group, and escape from their daily lives. When the spectator feel crowded in a professional sports stadium, they form both positive and negative emotion. Thus, crowdedness not only had negative effects on consumer behavior. Review of literature as follows. Perceived crowdedness is a variable that is frequently used in studies investigating service facilities in many different contexts, such as shopping, dining, and more. As spectatorship service facility, sports venue can share a common nature with other service facilities. However, there has been a dearth of research investigating the impact of the perceived crowdedness within spectator sports facility on consumer evaluation. The present study aims to investigate the structural relationship among perceived crowdedness in a professional basketball stadium, spectator satisfaction, and revisit intention. The findings of this study are expected to provide preliminary findings as for how the perceived crowdedness can affect event attendance evaluation. The theoretical background is as follows. It is the basis for establishing the research hypothesis. Based on previous research on relationship between crowdedness and satisfaction, the study put forward the following hypothesis. Hypothesis 1 is spatial crowdedness will have a negative effect on satisfaction, and 2 is human crowdedness will have a positive effect on satisfaction. According to previous research on relationship between crowdedness and revisit intention, this study put forward the following hypothesis. 3 is spatial crowdedness will have a negative effect on revisit intention, and 4 is human crowdedness will have a positive effect on the revisit intention. Through previous research on relationship between satisfaction and revisit intention, this study put forward the following hypothesis. 5 is satisfaction will have a positive effect on revisit intention. This is the model of research. Research objects are as follows. The demographic characteristics are as follows. The composition of the questionnaire is as follows. Composed of variables that can be measured using the self-administration method made with 5-point Likert scale. There are 4 questions on spatial crowdedness, 3 for human crowdedness, satisfaction, revisit intention, and 5 questions to know about demographic characteristics of the research object. Data processing method is as follows. Analysis was conducted using SPSS in AMOS according to the purpose of the study. And the detailed data processing method is as follows. It is the result of confirmatory factor analysis and reliability analysis. The CR value exceeds 0.7 and the AVE value exceeds 0.5. Crumble alpha also exceeds 0.7. So the standard value was satisfied. Structural model stability values were found to be stable. The results of the study are as follows. Except for H3, all hypotheses were supported. This is the discussion on the effect of crowdedness on satisfaction. Van Rompuy et al. Found that in the case of high spatial crowdedness within the facility, the higher the human crowdedness, the lower the consumer satisfaction. Whereas in case of lower spatial crowdedness, the higher the human crowdedness, the higher the consumer's satisfaction. Therefore, professional basketball stadiums should calculate the flow of the spectators and should design and plan an effective flow of spectator traffic within stadia. By doing so, the attendees would feel lower level of spatial crowdedness. However, since human crowdedness has a positive effect on satisfaction, it is necessary to increase the satisfaction of the spectators by creating an environment which the spectators can feel psychological interaction with others in a limited space while purposefully leaving some vacant seat. This is the discussion on the effect of crowdedness on revisit intention. Unlike the previous study, that the higher the spatial crowdedness of the facility decreases the revisit intention. In this study, spatial crowdedness doesn't affect the revisit intention. Since 원주 취약 gymnasium was newly constructed, it is necessary to investigate the effect of spatial crowdedness in the existing professional sports stadium. Considering that the higher the human crowdedness, the higher the perceived value, the higher the revisit intention. It's necessary to increase the revisit intention by creating a space where the spectators can interact together. This is the discussion on the effect of satisfaction on revisit intention. Team revealed in a study on the satisfaction and behavioral intentions of participants in spectator sports after experience, arguing the satisfaction of spectating participants had a positive effect on the revisit intention. Lee argued that the negative and restricted situation in the facility should be removed or weakened to effectively manage the satisfaction and increase the revisit intention. Satisfaction played a key role in promoting the revisit intention. So there is a need to efficiently manage the spatial and human crowdedness of the spectators visiting the professional sports stadium to increase the satisfaction and promote the revisit intention. The study empirically found out how perceived crowdedness variables, which were not frequently used before, affect the spectator sports facility. The findings of the present study show the importance of reducing spatial crowdedness to attract spectators. Thus, facility managers should calculate the flow of the spectators and should design and plan an effective flow of spectators traffic within stadia. Moreover, spectating satisfaction and revisit intention require event managers to create an environment where the spectators can feel psychological interaction together by increasing the level of perceived human crowdedness. Recommendations are as follows. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Song-mi Song from Seoul National University. The title of the study is The Effect of Perceived Gender Role on Sport Participation and Sport Type Preference. The Moderation Effect of Masculinity. These days, female sport consumption is increasing. According to Korean Professional Sports Association, the percentage of female visitors was counted as 58.5% in volleyball and about 50% in baseball in the 5 major professional sports events. And also, existing studies are simply interested in the difference in sport participation between biological sex, or their research interest is limited participants to women. Since it is not just biological sex that affects sports consumption behavior, but individuals' characteristics or traits, research is needed to include social psychological aspects on sports participation behavior. Therefore, the purpose of this study and research question is there a difference in sport participation intention according to the biological sex difference? How do the components of theory of planned behavior affect sport participation intention? Does perceived gender role influence on sport type preference? Does the perceived gender role affect sport type preference? Masculinity and femininity have long been conceptualized as bipolar ends of a single continent. Accordingly, a person has had to be either masculine or feminine, but not both. In the BAM sex role inventory, self-descriptions are used to measure the extent to which men and women describe themselves in terms of personality traits that make up the stereotype for their own and the other sex. Based on respondents' self-rating of list of personality traits, the BSRI allows the classification of respondents into 4 groups: androgynous, masculine, feminine, and undifferentiated. The theory of planned behavior is a widely used theory of the proximal determinants of behavior. The central idea behind the TPB is that a person's actual behavior is immediately determined by the behavior intention, which is a function of 3 constructs: attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavior control. The sports preference implication of such a fundamental factor as the viewer's sex or gender have, for the most part, remained unexplored. Under some circumstances, an individual's psychological gender may be a better predictor of behavior and preference than an individual's biological gender. To discern grouping of sports on the basis of performance affinity, 3 fundamental sports types were suggested: combative sports, stylistic sports, and mechanized sports. Based on the previous study, here we created a hypothesis. A total of 268 samples were used for analysis, and the data analysis included frequency analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, independent sample t-test, multiple regression, moderated regression analysis, and cross-tabulation analysis were used. These are the questionnaire for the survey. We used components of theory of planned behavior, BAM sex role inventory, and sport type preference, which is from Sargent et al. This is the final result of confirmation factor analysis. We removed items under factor loading 0.4, and finally the total of 13 items were used for CFA. Overall, CR, AVE, Chromba Alpha will exceed the standardization. And also, chi-square value, TLI, CFI were good for overall model fit. Independent sample t-test was conducted to determine whether there is a difference between biological sex about sport participation intention. As you can see here, there was no significant difference between men and women, so hypothesis 1 is supported. And this is the result of multiple regression on sport participation intention. As you can see here, attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavior control all have significant influence on sport participation intention. Therefore, hypothesis 2 is supported. These are the results of moderation effect analysis. As you can see, there is a moderation effect of the relationship between attitude and sport participation. But there was no moderation effect between subjective norm and sport participation intention and perceived behavior control and sport participation intention. Therefore, hypothesis 3 is partially supported. Cross-tabulance analysis was conducted to distinguish sport type preference between gender role group. As you can see here, masculine preferred mechanized sports, feminine of stylistic sports, androgynous of combative sports, and undifferentiated stylistic sports. These are the results of hypothesis test. The results shows that there were no significant difference between male and female on sport participation intention. This result is in the line with previous research that individuals' psychological gender may be a better predictor of behavior and preference than a biological sex. And also, it was confirmed that masculinity as a moderator influences on the relationship between attitude and intention to sport participation. And it was found that there was a significant difference in the type of sport preference among the 4 groups: masculinity, femininity, androgyny, undifferentiated, according to gender role identity. According to the result of this study, it is reasonable to assume that sports marketers could consider participants' sexual inclination rather than biological sex when they apply marketing strategies for certain type of a sport. This study focuses only sport participation behavior and sport type of preference. So it is worth verifying from the perspectives of viewership or spectatorship. And if more samples collected, the more detailed sport items can be analyzed through various sport categories. And more in-depth approaches can be made by including various psychological traits. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jisuk Chang from Seoul National University, and the topic of my presentation is Team Standings Differential Effect on Nostalgic and Current Team Licensed Apparel, the Moderating Effect of Power Distance Belief. These are the tables of contents. Licensed sport merchandise is a major source of revenue for sports teams worldwide, recording an estimated global value of $31.8 billion in 2018, among which the apparel segment accounts for the highest market share. Furthermore, during the past 2 decades, sports apparel that incorporate past logos and uniform designs, known as throwback or retro apparel, have become popular among fans. For example, companies like Mitchell & Ness started out as a small boutique shop, and today they hold the exclusive right to manufacture throwback apparel for all 5 of the US major sports leagues. Despite the popularity of throwback apparel in sports, it has received little academic attention. Past studies have suggested that the nostalgic nature of throwback merchandise is a key element that differentiates them from current merchandise. However, no studies to date have investigated relevant personal and situational circumstances that may differentially influence fans' preferences between throwback and current merchandise. The sport marketing literature on sport licensed merchandise uniformly show that a team's poor performance is negatively correlated with the purchase intentions for the team's merchandise. However, we contend that throwback apparel can be more resilient to the effects of poor team performance due to throwback apparel's nostalgic nature. Thus, the purpose of the current study was to examine the interplay of a theoretically relevant cultural variable known as power distance belief and the performance of teams in shaping fans' differential preferences for current and throwback apparel. Perceptions of self-inferiority often lead to negative or aversive psychological states. Also, when consumers are in such aversive states, they engage in compensatory behaviors to restore or repair a more positive view of the self. For example, consumers purchase status signaling products when they feel powerless, appearance-enhancing products and services when feeling unattractive, and university t-shirts when feeling socially excluded. Furthermore, such compensatory consumption behavior can also be triggered by merely identifying with an inferior group. For example, in a study by Mazzucato, they found that identifying with a fictional African-American character increased their desire to consume status signaling products. Fans of sports teams are also known to be highly identified with their teams, as can be seen through the Berging and Korfing literature. Social identity theory suggests that Berging and Korfing behavior is rooted in people's desire to be associated with a team that is perceived to reflect positively on themselves and to disassociate with a team if it is perceived to reflect negatively. However, in terms of psychological distress, highly identified fans show bigger disappointment and more negative emotions after an unsatisfactory performance by the team. Also, many fan communities ascribe a level of honorability to diehard fans, while they tend to shun fair-weather fans. Thus, a fan of a poorly performing team is faced with a self-discrepancy in which the fan is associated with a poorly performing team, but has no means of direct resolution, such as increasing the team's performance. We suggest that one possible method for fans to compensate for this self-discrepancy is to highlight their loyalty or their temporal affiliation with a team from a time that it once had a good reputation. In other words, the nostalgic nature of throwback apparel may provide a means for fans to alleviate the discomfort caused by the current poorly performing team. Nostalgia is defined as a yearning for the past, or a fondness for tangible or intangible possessions and activities linked with the past, and is often experienced when individuals feel either separated from an era to which they are attached or are discontent with the current era. The general marketing literature indicates that consumers who experience a psychological threat, such as social exclusion, mortality threats, and health threats, display higher preferences for nostalgic products and advertisements. Thus, based on the literature regarding team performance and nostalgia, we first hypothesized that fans of teams with a positive win-loss record will show higher purchase intentions for team licensed apparel in general, than fans of a team with a negative win-loss record. And more importantly, that there would be an interaction effect between a team's win-loss record and product type, such that fans will show higher purchase intentions for throwback apparel compared to current apparel when the team has a negative win-loss record. Power distance belief, or PDB, refers to the extent to which individuals accept and expect inequalities and hierarchies throughout society. In other words, power distance belief represents the degree to which someone accepts power and status disparities. High PDB individuals readily rank and discriminate among brands, and they categorize information using fewer factors. And they also use dispositional factors and heuristic cues to make judgments. As such, high PDB individuals are more likely to make more favorable judgments about brands that are considered an in-group brand as opposed to an out-group brand compared to those with low PDB. Thus, we hypothesized that high PDB compared to low PDB individuals would display higher purchase intentions for team-licensed apparel in general. Meanwhile, individuals with low PDB tend to view status inequalities as unacceptable and undesirable. When low PDB individuals are faced with a situation in which power or status inequalities become salient, they experience greater discrepancies than their high PDB counterparts. As a result, when low PDB individuals engage in upward comparisons, they actively pursue behaviors aimed at devaluing the salient superiors or enhancing their own status through consumption of status goods. Therefore, we hypothesized that PDB would moderate the effect of team standing and product type such that low PDB individuals will display a higher preference for throwback apparel than current apparel when the team has a negative win-loss record. For study participants, we gathered data using Amazon Mechanical Turk and targeted NBA fans. To target relevant samples and ensure response quality, we screened participants for area of residence, an above 98% completion rate with a minimum of 5,000 completed tasks. Furthermore, 16 responses from each team were evenly collected as a means to gather data that represents the NBA fans as a whole rather than those of a particular team. Also, the Chicago Bulls, Brooklyn Nets, New Orleans Pelicans, and Oklahoma City Thunder were removed because they either never had a logo change or their predecessor teams were based in a different geographical area from the current team. After removing 15 insincere responses, a final sample of 401 participants were used for data analysis. Upon qualification, participants were asked to indicate which team they were a fan of, after which they were instructed to note their favorite team's standing in a photo of the current rankings and win-loss records of all NBA teams. Next, participants were randomly presented with a white t-shirt that had either the current logo or past logo on it on both the front and back of the t-shirt. The following scales were used to measure the related constructs. T-tests for manipulation checks were conducted, and participants in the throwback apparel condition displayed higher nostalgic feelings than those in the current apparel condition. Also, participants in the positive win-loss record displayed higher performance satisfaction than those in the negative win-loss condition. To test the hypothesis, 2x2x2 factorial ANOVA was conducted with purchase intentions as the dependent variable. Results of the main effects indicate that for product type, there were no significant differences in purchase intentions between current and throwback apparel. Team standing returned significant differences where fans of positive win-loss record teams displayed higher purchase intentions compared to fans of negative win-loss record teams. PDB also yielded significant results where high PDB fans displayed higher purchase intentions than low PDB fans. Thus, hypotheses 1 and 3 were supported. As for the two-way interaction effects, only team standing and product type returned significant results. Here, When the team had a positive win-loss record, there were no significant differences in purchase intentions between current and throwback apparel. However, when the team had a negative win-loss record, the purchase intentions for throwback apparel were significantly higher than current apparel. Thus, hypothesis 2 was supported. Finally, for the three-way interaction effect, results were also significant. For the low PDB group, when the team had a negative win-loss record, purchase intentions for throwback apparel were higher than current apparel. However, when the team had a positive win-loss record, the difference between throwback and current apparel became insignificant. Meanwhile, for the high PDB group, the two-way interaction between product type and team standing was not significant. Therefore, hypothesis 4 was supported. The current study is one of the first to directly compare situations and individual variables that differentially affect preferences for throwback and current merchandise. Findings showed that fans displayed differential preferences for throwback and current team apparel depending on the performance of the team that they support, and this phenomenon is mostly accountable to low PDB fans. Most importantly, fans of teams with a negative win-loss record show higher purchase intentions for throwback apparel compared to current apparel. Inspection of the results indicate that when the preferred team is performing poorly, current merchandise purchase intentions are significantly lower compared to when the preferred team is performing well. Meanwhile, for throwback apparel, poor performance did not affect purchase intentions, and that this trend was driven by fans characterized by low PDB. Thus, while high PDB individuals are more tolerant to temporary setbacks of the team, low PDB individuals more readily disassociate with the current team merchandise. However, the upside is that even low PDB individuals retain their preferences for throwback apparel. Therefore, to even the low PDB individuals, throwback apparel is resilient to the threat of being associated with a low-performing team by tapping into fans' nostalgic feelings. Theoretically, the current study adds to the sports merchandise literature by directly comparing throwback and current merchandise preferences. Also, we introduce PDB as a cultural variable that impacts the differing preferences for throwback and current merchandise depending on the team's standing. Practically, the current study suggests that managers may more strongly promote nostalgic merchandise in times of a team's poor performance. The current study utilized the seasonal standing as a proxy for team performance. Therefore, it may not be generalizable to single event situations. Future studies may explore whether such effects apply to single game performances. Relatedly, some sports teams are known to have poor performance for several consecutive seasons, while others are always top contenders. Future studies may also explore how the past history and future prospects may affect results. Finally, the current study used simple t-shirts with past and current logos. This was to minimize the effects of the aesthetic qualities of the product. However, the past logos by definition have a retro appeal in design. Therefore, future studies may use just the current logo but manipulate nostalgic feelings through advertising cues.
Hello everyone, I'm Junyoung Lee from Master's course in Yonsei University. The title of this study is Social Big Data Analysis on Perception of the K-League Football Club, focused on Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. This is the table of contents. Let me start with the need of study. Public's interest in viewing professional sports has rapidly increased as changes of generations. However, the average seat share of professional football is only 19.5%, which is the lowest compared to professional baseball, basketball, and volleyball. Spectators are the most essential factor in professional sports. Satisfying the audience's needs and understanding consumer perception can improve audience satisfaction, create new audiences, and build a sustainable and positive relationship with existing audiences. Suwon Samsung Blue Wings is the FA Cup most winning club And 6 games out of the top 10 for the highest number of spectators ever in K-League are games of Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, which means that Suwon Samsung Blue Wings is historically both in ticket sales success and performances in the K-League are at the top level and making it suitable for an analysis to find out the perception of the club within the league. Especially Suwon Samsung Blue Wings is having difficulty in managing the club as the scale of financial support for the club decreases as the club operator was changed to JL Worldwide Incorporated. In order to adequately cope with and overcome such changes in the business environment, an understanding of the consumer psychological perception is necessary to induce professional football viewer and their consumption. The club should have its own method and strategies for management with surpluses and increase of self-sustainability of the club. Most of the studies on football using social network analysis were conducted with a focus on football match analysis, and most of the studies related to professional football spectators were conducted with a focus on the determinant, importance, and satisfaction analysis. In the current situation, it is necessary to catch trends and perception of participants above all else in order to strengthen a more competitive advantage. It is suitable for analyzing consumer trends in times, and marketing economy trends through big data analysis, and is useful for evaluating service, predicting market size, and finding out consumer reactions. In order to increase the number of spectators, data analysis is needed to identify the need of the audience by focusing on a specific club. For a professional baseball club, Kia Tigers, there is a study using big data analysis of social network to see the perception of professional baseball clubs. However, there is no study on domestic professional football club using social network analysis. Therefore, the purpose of the study is to analyze the keyword of Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, a professional soccer team, to find out trends and perception of the spectators. This is the theoretical background of the social big data analysis. And text mining. And theoretical background of social big data analysis in semantic network analysis. This is the research process. In this study, big data analysis is conducted to identify various keywords for the K-League Classic professional soccer team, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. Data collecting range was limited to news article and posts from blog and cafe on Naver and Daum. Naver is ranked first and Daum is ranked second in the website visitor ranking in South Korea. And in this study, data from such as KakaoTalk, Twitter, and Facebook are exploited because their data are mostly in private SNS account, or the data provision period is less than a month. Data collecting period is limited to 3 years. To analyze recent perception based on prior studies, for data collection, online posting containing keywords are collected using Textum program. The search keyword for word collection was selected as Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. From collected data, words that are not related to Suwon Samsung Blue Wings are deleted and refined. The process is carried out with a researcher from doctoral course in sports marketing. Textum is used for collecting and analyzing method. It is an analysis package and full text software that is optimized for Korean language. Since various studies using Textum have been conducted, the reliability of Textum is proven. UCNet is also used for network analysis and Concord analysis. It is a software that visualizes the network and structure of the connection relationship between words. From January 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2019, data was conducted annually focusing on the keywords Suwon Samsung Blueins. And these are the number of data collected annually from different sources. These are the top 50 words by frequency and the word cloud result that visualize the word for data from 2017. Data from 2018. Data from 2019. And the top 50 words with high language centrality value in 2017. (2018) and the top 50 words in 2019. This is the network visualization for 2017 data. And this is the Concur analysis result for 2017 data. And 4 clusters are formed, and the word included in each clusters are follows. This is the network visualization for 2018 data. And the Concur analysis result for 2018 data. And the 6 clusters are formed, and the word included in each clusters are follows. This is the network visualization for 2019 data. And the Concur analysis result for 2019 data, and 7 clusters are formed, and the word included in each clusters are follows. And let's move on to the discussion. Specific person's names, such as player's name, are extracted, Yeom Gi-hoon and Kim Min-woo, and so on. Such result is consistent with the prior studies arguing the possession of sports stars of a professional soccer team gives a positive image to the club. Sports fans are rewarded with watching a star players game. Also, they want to show off their star players to others. And there is narcissistic love to improve their skills, to increase their loyalty to the players or the teams or the city. Therefore, the presence of the sports stars such as Yeom Gi-hoon and Kim Min-woo is essential in order to positively enhance the club's image and the image of licensed products. The names of players who did well by the season are annually appear on the data, and legend stars such as Yeom Gi-hoon appear consistently at high frequency. In order to create a synergy effect with the starization of several players, more investment is needed in recurring players. Secondly, there are also managers' names were shown in the data, Seo Jung-won and Im Seng. Such a result is consistent with the prior studies, as the role of the leader is important in increase the efficiency among members and to achieve the team's victory. A manager's ability is important because it directly affects the performance of the team. A good manager leads to a good team performance, which lead to increased audience interest. Third, there are names of competitions in each year's data. A product that is most attractive to the audience is an interesting match, and an exciting match start with a crushing match according to the prior study. Participation in many competitions, cups, league is more important to make many interesting matches. The more home games are hosted and played, the more likely the spectator income will increase. Fourth, there are uniforms as a keywords in each year's data. Products related to teams and players, such as uniform with sports players' back numbers, are popular under the name of the goods. There are high interest in uniforms, one of the club's licensed product, as it is directly connected to the club's income and is mainly worn by spectators visiting the stadium. Consideration and effort on design and brand is required. The result of the analysis of the degree of data linkage for the keywords Suwon Samsung Blue Wings in 2017, 2018, and 2019, showing a result similar to the result of frequency analysis of poor appearance with no significant differences. Network centrality of each year's data were respectively low, with a number of 23.11%, 21.89%, and 20.12%. This is consistent with the previous study of Lee and Lim. Let me move on to the Concord analysis result. In the 2017 and 2019 data, words that are related with preparation for a season form a cluster. There are lots of interest in the preparation process as well as the games during the season. In particular, it can be seen that there is an emotional impact as the word good appear in the cluster. A cluster of words related to competition information are found. It can be seen that the performance of the competition is important by seeing the cluster formed in each year's data, the competition that the team did well in each season. Also, there are clusters of words related to the club's record for each season. It is consistent with Zhang's study that league match performance is directly related to the club's popularity and spectator revenue. It can be seen that the team performance is the one that directly affects the audience and fans emotionally based on the fact that the keyword joy appears together with the score and victory. Lastly, there is a cluster of words related to the opposing team. This is consistent with the study that shows opposing team information affect spectators. One of the factors that increased fans' interest, the more competitive game is, the greater the number of spectators than the other. So the strategies to attract more spectators' attention through story creation, like creating derby and rival with the opposing teams, are necessary. Here are the conclusions. First, as a result of frequency analysis of the keyword by year, it was possible to confirm the status of the club by year and the field of interest of the spectators. Second, the result of the analysis of degree of center of connection of the keyword Suwon Samsung Blue Wings shows a result similar to the frequency of words that appear. It appears that the most frequently used words are located at the center of the network and play an important role. Third, as a result of the Concord analysis, 4, 6, and 7 clusters were created for each year. In common, there are clusters including basic tournament information, record, and opposing team. Based on this, it is necessary to establish a marketing strategy that focuses on areas of interest to the audience and utilize them. Limitations are followed. Thank you for listening.
Hello, I'm Hijiri from the doctorate program at Yonsei University. The title of the study is Social Big Data Analysis and Consumer Perception about Virtual Reality Sports. This is the table of contents. Let me start with the need of study. Virtual reality is defined as a virtual environment implemented using a computer, where technology is used in relation to human life and has advanced to the level of technology that allow users to actively experience in virtual environment. As a result, the VR market continues to grow. New technologies have played a leading role in creating many novel sports activities. In particular, it is widely used in various sports contexts such as recreational sports activity, physical education. VR sports are classified into various types depending on the application method of technology and the type of implementation. As the untagged culture has recently become prevalent because of COVID-19 pandemic across the globe, This technology has been widely and rapidly utilized for consumer relief, including sports activities. VR sports is playing a significant role in the sports industry, given that it is being used in physical education and sports competition, as well as a continuous increase in interest and rapid market growth. Actually, the VR market was only 100 billion won in 2007 spurt, but 10 years on inflated is 5 trillion won, 50 times growth. And patent application for VR sports related to IT technology are increasing. The VR sports market is expected to continue to grow as various sports such as baseball, running, cycling, shooting, fishing, and tennis have emerged following screen growth. Although several studies have been conducted regarding these VR sports, the main focus was on verifying the relationship among fixed variables through survey, focusing on case study on VR sports, focusing on functional change and presenting problem and improvement direction in the process of combining VR and sports. So the purpose of this study is to analyze the consumer perception towards VR sports by utilizing social media big data in aiming to identify new potential variables to be further investigated by future research and to offer implications for market revitalization strategies for VR sports. Let's move on the theoretical background. VR sports is a combination of VR technology. It has the same athletic effect as actually playing the sports, and it is new concept sports that provide a realistic experience for participants and audience. The VR sports system is divided into the following categories. Big data analysis using SNS, the news, is very useful to understand the public perception. It can derive new various perception and potential variables that could not be obtained from the existing approach. Social big data analysis can have various effects depending on how social media information is analyzed. Among these methods of analysis, social network analysis can systematically understand the flow of information. Prior study on social big data analysis are as follows. This study conducted test mining and semantic network analysis, the representative technique of big data analysis. First, text mining is a process and technique that summarizes the vast amount of text data information to suit the user desired purpose. The following is a semantic network analysis. It is a method of extracting words from the text and analyzing meaning within a network based on association between words. In the field of business administration, by identifying the centrality of data connectivity, one can select the most influential element within social network service or networks and use it as a marketing strategy. Let's move on to the method. In this study, big data analysis is conducted to identify various keywords VR sports. The textone program was used to collect data to be used in this study. Data collection information are as follows. The search keyword for word collection was selected as virtual reality sports. The collected data help define words that are not related to VR sports. The network related to VR sports was visualized using UCNet. Finally, concurrent analysis was conducted to illustrate the cluster form based on similarity. The data collection results are as follows. The top 50 keyword and frequency are as follows. Word cloud results are as follows. The top 50 words with high degree centrality are as follows. Keyword visualization in network analysis are as follows. Concurrent analysis results are as follows. 5 clusters are formed and words included in each cluster are followed. Let's move on to discussion. Keyword analysis showed that the words related to technology are ranked at the top. The domestic VR industry has a high level of IT technology, but relevant experts point out that the law and promotional policy for the domestic VR sports industry are insufficient. Therefore, for realistic contest activation, policy support must precede and support for the development of the related industry in various fields as well as sports. Keyword analysis results show that VR sports are being used for direct consumption, such as sports screen, baseball, screen golf, and esports, as well as indirect consumption, such as watching sports game and sports broadcasting. There have been many studies on screen sports, but there seems to be a lack of research on sports broadcasting and watching sports events through VR technology. Therefore, future research should focus on indirect experience that consumers are interested in recently. Identifying new forms of sports media consumption behavior will help establish an effective marketing strategy. Discussion based on the result of the trigger centrality are as follows. Recent, start, schedule, expansion, creation, and this year were emerged as new words in centrality. In case of experience, it ranked 8th in frequency, but 5th in the result of degree centrality. In addition, VR Sports Classroom ranks 10th in keyword analysis, but 60th in degree centrality analysis result. So companies should develop marketing strategy based on words with high degree centrality. Discussion on concurrent analysis results are as follows. Cluster 1 was named essential element of VR sports. The most representative VR sports in Korea is screen sports. The biggest success factor for this screen sports is having the sportainment attribute. Related industries are constantly working on developing contents such as screen golf contents using VR headset to realize more realistic VR. Contents and platforms that will attract consumers' attention should be continuously studied, and elements that can lead to consumer immersion should be found. This eventually lead to the development with virtual sports and VR industry, which can increase consumer satisfaction. Cluster 2 was named VR Sports Utilization. The main purpose of the use of VR sports is sports activity, education, and experience. Future research should take into account the purpose of using VR sports. It is necessary to identify consumer needs according to the purpose of using VR sports, such as education, sports activity, and experience, and to select suitable device, develop contents, and establish support policies. Cluster 3 was named Future Growth Industry. Because of COVID-19, tech society has emerged as a new paradigm. As a result, the VR and AR industries are growing even more. since it provides sports service that can be enjoyed even in the untapped condition. Sports officials are carrying out various marketing strategies such as holding events and competition using VR sports. However, it would be more effective for sports companies to carry out marketing after understanding consumers' needs and technology acceptance intention of the fast developing future technology. Cluster 4 was named Development of Realistic Contents. In VR, the most important factor is the technology to reproduce the virtual environment as if it were real, and the sense of reality affects the user's flow. Therefore, screen sports companies need to establish and operate various strategies to increase flow. Researchers have emphasized the importance of reality and flow in VR sports. It is necessary to verify consumer experience in sports broadcasting and viewing using VR. Finally, the smart cluster was named the Governance Project. VR sports classroom seems to create a new smart cluster as they were distributed to elementary schools nationwide due to government policy. It is important to identify areas where VR sports can have a positive impact and to implement appropriate support policies. Let's move on to the conclusion. Keyword frequency analysis and degree centrality result was similar, but new word appeared in degree centrality. Therefore, our marketing strategy should be established by considering the word that consumers perceive as important. Concurrent analysis showed that 4 large clusters and 1 small cluster were formed. Future research should be conducted in consideration of the characteristics and the purpose of using VR sports. It is also necessary to conduct research on the experience of consumers who enjoy VR sports by utilizing new variables. This study is important because the new variable to increase the need for further research and provide practical data for sustainable market revitalization by identifying the perception of VR sports. Limitation are as follows. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
This is Won-Suk Chang, and I'm assistant professor at Sungkyunkwan University, and the co-author for this project is Young-Woo Kang. And the title for this presentation is Who Made Decision? The Effect of Anthropomorphism on Perception of Robot Empire in Baseball. In 2018, the Human Empire made about 35,000 inquiry calls, and to make the call more credible and accurate, the MLB have recently decided to use the Robot Empire. The Robot Empire uses a triangle system. The triangle system identifies the ball location and determine whether the call is ball is right. And once Robot Empire make their decision, they inform their decision to Human Empire, and Human Empire make the final decision. So this study focusing on how the use of Robot Empire may impact the call credibility, trust in Empire, game enjoyment, and future intention to attend the game. According to the source bias framework, people evaluation of target object could be determined based on the characteristic of the sources that provide the information. So scholars have demonstrated that when information came from a credible person in technology, people perceived this information as more credible when it came from a non-credible person in a technology. Based on this notion, Scholars have demonstrated that the decision made by artificial intelligence and robot are perceived as more credible and trustworthy when humans make the same decision. And they have argued that this is because people believe artificial intelligence and robot make a decision based on the predefined rule and computational algorithm, which involve a less personal bias. However, when you look at the findings are somewhat mixed. So one line of research have demonstrated that the decision made by artificial intelligence are perceived as more credible. On the other hand, other line of research has demonstrated that the decision made by artificial intelligence actually decrease the credibility of the decision. And to look in more detail, Lee proposed a boundary condition, which is the nature of the test. So Lee have demonstrated that when the test requires human skill, people perceive the decision made by human as more credible compared to when artificial intelligence make the same decision. But at the same time, Lee have demonstrated that when the tests do not require human skill, the decision made by artificial intelligence are equally credible, or more credible when humans make the same decision. And if we apply this concept to the baseball, most of the people may not aware of the use of robot umpire or the technology behind the robot umpire. Therefore, those individuals may perceive that the ball and strike call in baseball should be made by human umpire rather than the robot umpire because those decisions require some sort of expertise. So based on this notion, we have argued that the ball and strike decision made by a human umpire are perceived as more fair and lead to greater degree of expertise in making call credibility, trust in the umpire, game enjoyment, and future intention of when robot umpire make the same decision. And also we create a research question in terms of how the prediction of H1 and H2 would be different depending on whether a sport consumer actually watched a game that are judged by a robot umpire. So experiment 1 used a 2x2 between subject design, and a total of 160 participants participate in this research. In terms of stimuli, we carefully reviewed the entire game that used a robot umpire and selected 14 positions where sport consumers are not able to identify whether the game was judged by a human or a robot umpire. And in terms of manipulation of umpire type in the human umpire condition, before watching the video, a participant read a description in terms of how human umpire make a ball and strike decision. In the robot umpire condition, participant read a description in terms of how TriMa system make a ball and strike decision. And in terms of manipulation of different type of experiences, in terms of forecaster, a participant did not watch the video. They were simply asked to imagine a situation where either a robot or a human umpire make a ball and strike decision. In the experiencer condition, a participant actually watched a game, and which were either judged by a human or a robot umpire. And in terms of finding, only expertise has a significant difference. So participants perceive that the ball and strike decision are perceived as more expertise when humans make a decision compared to the robot, and other dependent variables were not significant. So experiment 1 demonstrated that the only difference between robot umpire and human umpire was the expertise. And also the type of experience did not play a significant role. So to look into more detail, we further conducted experiment 2, and we add another variable, which is a humanized robot umpire, which I will explain which I will explain later. And also we attempted to identify a boundary condition where the use of robot umpire actually enhance or decrease the evaluation of ball and strike call and the trust in the umpire. So according to the anthropomorphism theory, a scholar have demonstrated that people perceive the robot as similar to human and also experience greater emotional attachment when robots are having a human-like characteristic. So based on this theory, we have argued that once robot umpire possess a human-like characteristic, people may view robot umpire as being similar to human. Therefore, they believe that those non-human entities are able to make a ball and strike decision in baseball. So we have argued that the ball and strike decision made by a human umpire and a human as robot umpire would be perceived as more fair and lead to greater degree of call credibility, trust in the umpire, game enjoyment, and future attention compared to when robot umpire make the same decision. And at the same time, we propose a moderating variable, which is the age. So past research has demonstrated that younger people are more familiar with the robot and they naturally create greater trust with the robot compared to the older people. So we propose two more hypotheses. So younger people will exhibit similar degree of call credibility, trust in the umpire, game enjoyment, and future intention when the game are refereed by a robot umpire, human as robot umpire, and a human umpire. However, we propose that for the older people, they will exhibit greater degree of call credibility, trust in the umpire, game enjoyment, and future intention when they watch the game that are judged by a human umpire and the human as umpire compared to the robot umpire. So experiment 2 uses 3x2 design and a total of 200 participants participate in experiment 2. So in terms of manipulation in the human umpire condition, we simply told that the game are judged by a human umpire. In the robot umpire condition, again, they read a description in terms of how tracking system make a ball and strike decision. In the human as robot umpire condition, they read a similar description, but we provide a human-like heuristic to the robot umpire. So in terms of procedure, in the first stage, participants were randomly assigned to one of the 3 umpire conditions, and in the second stage, they watch a 3 possession of a game among those 14 pre-edited possessions, and after watching the game, they complete the questionnaire. So in terms of finding, experiment 2 demonstrated that participants perceive the call made by human and human as robot umpire as more fair and credible, and they create greater trust in the umpire compared to when robot umpire make the decision. However, there was no significant difference on game enjoyment and future intention. And in terms of moderating effect of age, we demonstrated that for the younger people, the credibility in call were similar across umpire condition. However, for the older people, we demonstrated that people perceived the call made by the human umpire and the human as robot umpire as more credible compared to when robot umpire made the same decision. And we found a similar pattern with the trust in umpire. However, in terms of enjoyment, the difference was not significant, as well as future intention. So this research has demonstrated that people do not trust the decision made by the robot umpire because they believe those decisions require some sort of human skill. And we further demonstrated that one way to solve this problem is providing a human-like heuristic to the robot umpire, and such effects are determined based on consumer age. So in conclusion, this study has demonstrated that age is an important factor that determines the trust with umpire from a consumer perspective. And anthropomorphism is another factor that determines the trust with umpire from a technology perspective. And we hope that based on this research, other scholars should also consider what are the other factors that could determine the trust with robot umpire and do some future research. And thanks for listening to this presentation, and if you have any other question, feel free to send me an email. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Yoonji Jung, a PhD program student at Yonsei University in Korea. I would like to present my research on meta-analysis for the impact of relational benefit on immersion, satisfaction, and intention. It's a table of contents. Introduction. Exercise is important for people these days because it can help maintaining and improving health. It is also helpful to control weight, relieve stress, and enrich their spare time. Some of the most popular sports programs are fitness, cycling, golf, yoga, and Pilates. There is an increasing number of people who want to exercise and also of sports facilities. According to a 2017 survey by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, the number of registered sports facilities has been steadily increased. So, competition between facilities is intensifying in Korea as commercial sports facilities are oversupplied. From the relational marketing perspective, relational benefits have been considered as important determinants for maintaining a long-lasting relationship between consumers and service providers. And commercial sports facilities are not an exception. Very sad, companies and consumers can maintain a long-lasting relationship when both sides will benefit. Relational benefits were used to explain the relationship between various dependent variables, such as user immersion, satisfaction, and intention in exercise facilities. And many studies have found that relational benefits have a significant impact on satisfaction, immersion, and relationship continuity intention. Although previous studies cover the related benefits in various fields of exercise facilities, the studies have offered different interpretations to the sub-factors of the relational benefit and their impact on the outcomes. In other words, the previous finding can offer only limited predictability and understanding of the relationship between such benefit and outcome variables. Thus, if a comprehensive analysis is done through meta-analysis, it will be able to provide important data to conduct research related to the operational strategy of the exercise facility and its future relational benefits. Purpose. First, this study aims to investigate the impact of the relational benefits which consumers can find from exercise facilities on immersion, satisfaction, and intention by conducting a meta-analysis based on the findings of the studies in the past. Second, this study will provide exercise facility operators with managerial implications for relationship marketing strategy. The research questions are as follows. First, how large is the total effect size of relational benefit? Second, how large is the sub-factors effect size of relational benefits? Third, how large is the effect size of the relational benefit on the dependent variables? Review of the lecture. Relational benefit means the benefit offered to the customer to develop and maintain a relationship with the consumer over the long term. These relational benefits are being studied in many fields to maintain long-lasting relationships with consumers. Immersion refers to the cognitive and emotional feeling of being immersed in a particular action. This immersion is being studied in a variety of ways as a factor to maintain relationship with consumers. Satisfaction means meeting consumer expectations above the level. Many studies are being conducted as the consumer confidence remains constant. Relationship continuity intention means that the customer is satisfied with the goods or service provided by the company and intends to keep the relationship with the company positive and continuous. This intention has been studied a lot as a means of confirming the marketing strategy of a company. Method. According to Prisma instruction, academic article including published peer-reviewed journals and unpublished dissertation focusing on relational benefits in Korea from 2010 to August 2020. A total of 18 articles were collected, and a comprehensive meta-analysis program was used to analyze the relationship between relational benefit and dependent variables, including immersion, satisfaction, and intention. Result. With the Eggers test of intercept, the regression section was -5.15 and the standard error was 3.03. P equal 0.09 in order to confirm the publication bias of this study. The result of this study showed that the relational benefits have a significantly large effect on dependent variables, including immersion, satisfaction, and intention, with an effect size of 0.479. The effect size of each sub-dimension of relation benefits were: economic benefit effect size is 0.348, customization benefit effect size is 0.498. Social benefit effect size is 0.455. Psychological benefit effect size is 0.513. The result indicates that psychological benefit had the largest effect. The effect size of the relational benefit on dependent variables were: satisfaction effect size is 0.453. Immersion effect size is 0.465. Intention effect size is 0.432. The result indicates that immersion had the large effect. Discussion. The study makes significant contribution to the director with relational benefits by comprehensively identifying the impact of such benefits on consumers, immersion, satisfaction, and intention. The results show that the total effect size has a large effect. Thus, exercise facility operators should be aware of the importance of relational benefits and maintain continuous communication with customers. Psychological benefits show the large effect size when looking at the sub-factors on the relational benefit and the effect size of the correlation between immersion, satisfaction, and intention. This means that psychological benefits have the most positive effect when customers who use exercise facilities feel immersion, satisfaction, and intention. It can be understood that the psychological benefit can give consumers a sense of trust and stability. Therefore, the result of this study suggests that exercise facility operators should provide psychological benefits such as confidence. It is also necessary to immediately reserve the needs and complaint of the user to provide confidence in the exercise facility. In addition, information such as user complaints and requests should be systematically handled through the database, which will lead to satisfaction, immersion, and relationship continuity intention among sports facility users. Conclusion and recommendation. Conclusion. Relational benefit had large effect size, and psychological benefit of sub-factors were the large effect size. Therefore, exercise facility operators should recognize the importance of the psychological benefit offered to consumers. The results indicate that immersion has a large effect among immersion, satisfaction, and intention. This means that immersion must precede to induce satisfaction and intention. Recommendation. First, in future studies, it is suggested to proceed with the addition of other dependent variables such as loyalty and orality intention. Second, subsequent research are also advised to involve overseas journals. Thank you for listening.
Hello, I'm Arlohan, PhD candidate for Leisure Recreation at Yonsei University. Today, I will be presenting about the analysis of behaviors of participants in high-intensity interval training through a model of goal-direct behavior. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to you about my study. Before I begin, I would like to thank and wish the best for Korean Society for Sports Management. The sequence of my presentation will be the introduction to the purpose of the study, methodology, result and conclusion, and recommendations. The purpose of the study is to analyze the behavior of high-intensity interval training participants through a model of goal-direct behavior. Through the 215 questionnaires that were distributed to 4 different high-intensity training centers in Seoul, Korea. Data was collected by consuming information the participants' characteristics, specific course of action and goal toward high-intensity interval training. The survey was constructed with 3 broad subjects and 10 different sub-subjects within the broad 3 subjects. 1. Attitude, desire, and participation, intention toward high-intensity interval training. While collecting general characteristics of the participants. 2. Positive and negative anticipated emotions and its relationships. 3. Desire with subject norms with past number of frequencies in training. 6 survey and 209 valid samples were collected to explore the course of action of participants. In the study, to find out the purpose and the intents of the participants for HIIT, using the previous student that have been performed, 31 questions were created for the participants. The model of the study is as follows. Research was to find the relationship between the positive anticipated emotions, negative anticipated emotions, attitude toward training, subject norms, compared to the subjects following 4. 209 convenience valid sampling data out of 215 samples were used for the final study. From the 4 locations of HIIT training centers in Seoul, non-probability sampling method and convenience sampling method was used. The method of survey was done by self-administration questionnaires and Likert 5 scale measure. The study collected data from SPSS 24.0 and AMOS 24.0. HIIT participant characteristics were analyzed by frequency analysis prior to the confirmatory factor analysis and structural equation model. The survey contents are as follows. 4 questions on attitude, 4 questions on subject norms, 4 questions on perceived behavior control, 4 questions on positive anticipated emotion, 4 questions on negative anticipated emotion, 3 questions on desire, 4 questions on participation intention, and lastly, 4 questions of general characteristics of subject. The 4 components to find out the general characteristics of subject were gender, age, the frequency of HIIT participation, and lastly, their income. The data analysis was collected through SPSS 24.0 and AMOS 24.0 using the frequency analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, reliability analysis, correlation analysis, regression analysis. This is the result of the confirmatory factor analysis that was divided into 7 different aspects. To test the reliability of the study performed, Cronbach alpha was used for analysis. The result was above 0.7. Therefore, the data was considered to be valid. The result of correlation among variables are as follows. Please view the structural equation model's validity result. Please view the result of the characteristics of the participants H1, H3, H4, H7, H9 was chosen, while H2, H5, H6, H8 was omitted. Conclusion. First, attitude, general characteristics, and participation intention had positive influence on the amount of desire participants had toward high-intensive interval training. Survey on subject norms was omitted due to low correlation it had with participants' amount of desire. Using this result, it was shown that the participants of high-intensive interval training had to have both positive attitude and ability to perform in order to have high level of desire toward their training. Second, survey results of the relationships between desire, positive anticipated emotions, and negative anticipated emotions showed that positive anticipated emotions cause positive influence on high-intensive interval training. However, the negative anticipated emotions did not have any influence on participants' desire toward high-intensive interval training. In conclusion, there must be a positive anticipated emotion that need to be formed by the participants prior in order to have a positive influence and desired result through high-intensive interval training. Third, the result in relationships between the frequency of participation, desire, and the participants' intention in high-intensive interval training are as follows. The frequency of participation showed positive influence toward desire. However, the frequency of participation did not show apparent positive influence toward the participants' intention in high-intensive interval training. Participants' desire positively influenced the participants' intention in high-intensive interval training. As a result, high-intensive interval training is performed through personal goals, attitude toward training, behavior, control, relationship between positive, anticipated emotion, and desire. The 5 results written above directly correlated to the participants' intention in high-intensive interval training. The result of this study showed that participants in high-intensive interval training can form desire and then lead to the participation intention through positive attitude, perceived behavior control, and positive anticipated emotions. High-intensity interval training is more meaningful because it has recently been conducted at a non-face-to-face course due to COVID-19 and is being used by many participants and part of home training. Thank you for listening. I'm Arlohan in Yonsei University. Thank you.